Good evening, Council, and those joining us for our meeting this evening, welcome. And this is the continuation of the December 11th Council meeting for the City of Waterloo. This afternoon's budget was, this afternoon's meeting included a budget release, so of course we've had some interesting press to receive since that time. I'd like to double check if there's a disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof, Council. Seeing none, we're moving on to item 11A, formal public meeting. This is a formal public meeting to consider item 11A, official plan amendment number 32, zone change application Z2103, and draft plan of subdivision 30T-21401, 65 Northfield Drive, 525 and 565 Conestoga Road West, Ward 4 Northeast. Any persons who want further notice of this application, including the passage of any bylaw, should sign the appropriate register in the binder located on the desk at the rear of the council chambers. If there's more than one binder, please make sure you are signing the appropriate one. Will the clerk please advise council of the method used to give notice of the meeting and the dates notice was given?
Notice was advertised in the KW Record on November 23rd, 2023, and mailed or emailed on November 21st, 2023 to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, to public agencies, to all persons who signed in or spoke at the informal public meeting held on June 28th, 2021, and to all persons who requested further notice.
Thank you. The planner, Rita Zelock, will now give a brief overview of the application. Welcome, Rita.
Thank you, Chair Freeman. Good evening, Mayor McCabe, members of council, members of the public. This is a formal public meeting for 525 Conestoga Road West, official plan amendment number 32, zoning bylaw amendment Z2103, and draft plan of subdivision 30T-21401. The lands are owned by 65 Northfield Drive, Inc., represented here tonight by Chris Bidgen of GSB Group. The subject site is located in North Waterloo on the former Krause Flooring site. The lands are bound by Conestoga Parkway to the west, Northfield Drive to the north, Conestoga Road to the east, and employment uses to the south. The lands are generally surrounded by employment or commercial type uses further out. Innova Power has a transformer station opposite, on the opposite side of the road, across on Conestoga Road, and a hydro corridor bisects the site with hydro infrastructure above and below grade along here. The property is located near two LRT stations, with Conestoga LRT station located to the east and Northfield LRT station located to the west. Both are approximately 10 to 15 minute walking distance of the site. There are also existing bus routes operating along Northfield Drive and King Street North, and an existing multi-use path runs along Conestoga Road and connects into other multi-use paths that are running along King Street. In terms of the official plan, the subject site is designated employment, and more specifically, business employment. The business employment designation contemplates uses such as offices, medical clinics, light assembly, light manufacturing, light processing operations that are compatible with sensitive type land uses. The maximum height permissions on the lands are 27 meters. The subject site is also located within the Conestoga Station area, which is a major transit station area, or MTSA. As shown on this official plan schedule on the slide, an active transportation connection is envisioned to bisect the site along the hydro corridor. In terms of the zoning bylaw, the lands are zoned future determination, which permits uses and buildings that existed on the lot on the day that the bylaw it came into effect. This slide shows a 3D rendering of the original proposal presented to council in 2021 on the left, and the current development proposal in front of council tonight. The major difference between the two applications is really the developable area has shrunk, and it really just encompasses the area north of the hydro corridor. The applicant currently is proposing 12 towers on the site, 18 to 35 stories in height, 3,353 residential units, 8,000 square meters of non-residential space, 2,675 parking spaces, and approximately 1.1 hectares of privately owned, publicly accessible space, or POPs. This is the preliminary concept plan of the proposed development. The owner is proposing to comprehensively redevelop the lands into a high-density mixed-use development, which would include residential, commercial, and employment uses. It will contain a large park in the middle, or POPs area, and two smaller POPs areas are proposed in the northern portion and the southern portion. A new 18-meter wide municipal right-of-way, referred to as Street A, will run through the site, providing municipal street frontage for the POP space and for the mixed-use blocks on the site. On-street parking is proposed within the right-of-way, flanking the central park. Some surface parking is proposed in blocks 1, 3, 5, and 8. While the remainder of the parking spaces are proposed to be located either underground, including under the POPs areas, or within structured or podium parking. This is a preliminary floor plan of the proposed development. It shows the location of the structured parking along Conestoga Parkway and Northfield Drive. It also highlights the location of the proposed non-residential uses in red, and residential units located on the ground floor in light beige. This is the draft plan of subdivision. It includes the hydro corridor and anything north of the hydro corridor. Blocks 1 through 8 are intended to be the mixed-use blocks, and as you can see, these blocks have access onto Street A, which is highlighted for you in red on the slide. Block 9 is the hydro corridor, which will contain a multi-use path and a possible landing location for a potential pedestrian bridge across Conestoga Parkway. Lastly, the draft plan of subdivision will be developed in 2 stages, Stage A and B. This slide shows the extent of the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications. The revised OPA and ZBA applications in front of council tonight are applicable only to the lands north of the hydro corridor. The staff recommended official plan amendment in front of council tonight proposes to redesignate the land from employment to mixed-use community commercial with a site-specific provision that includes, but is not limited to, additional residential and non-residential use permissions, increased height permissions, increased density permissions, minimum non-residential use requirements, and holding provision requirements. This is the staff recommended zoning bylaw amendment. It is to rezone the lands from future determination, or FD, to station area mixed use community commercial 81 with site-specific provisions tailored to the proposed development. I won't go through all of these, I'll let you read them. Through staff's review and evaluation of the proposed applications, a number of key issues have been assessed. Some of the ones, I won't go through all of them, but some of the ones that I'll just highlight. The employment land conversion request, preservation of the employment function on the lands, given the planned function of the area is employment. Land use compatibility, sensitive uses are proposed on the site, and given the existing industrial uses on the adjacent lands, it had to be reviewed. Servicing design and capacity at a functional level was also reviewed. Obviously, further detail will need to be reviewed at a detailed design stage, including a life safety master plan, which would be required as part of the building permit submission. Transportation capacity and access for cars, pedestrians, cyclists was also reviewed, and of course, height and density and massing were reviewed. In conclusion, I'm of the opinion that the applications as recommended by staff represent good planning. Therefore, staff recommends that council adopt official plan amendment number 32, approve zoning bylaw amendment Z2103, and endorses draft plan of subdivision 30T 21401 for 525 and 565 Conestoga Road in accordance with section 8 of staff report IPPW 2023-059. I do have two corrections to mention before I close. There's a reference to 5,197 bedrooms in the maximum regulations. In the staff recommendations, it should read instead 5,452 bedrooms. So this is within the site-specific provision area 81 and site-specific exception C59. And then the other one that we noticed was a cross-referencing error. It has been noticed that the minimum 4,000 square meters of employment type uses should actually exclude live-work units. So this is within site-specific exception C59. That concludes my presentation. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Rita. So the changes you have been provided to clerks. We can look at them later. So at this point, I'd like to turn to council to see if you have any questions for the city's planner. Councillor Bodley.
Thank you, through you, Chair Freeman. My question is about the pedestrian bridge that was originally proposed over the highway, and the note, perhaps troubling note in there from the MTO suggesting that it wasn't necessary. And I wanted to highlight, I guess, that it was a big point of the conversation in the informal meeting, the fact that this is an employment conversion project and that there are limited services there, hence the significant amount of POP space that the applicant is proposing. But one of the key things that I think, as you referenced, is the proximity to the LRT and the ability to access other spaces throughout the city. Is there anything that we should be doing at council or staff to highlight the necessity with MTO for the need of this pedestrian bridge over the highway? I guess, is there any levers that we have to pull to get the MTO to listen to us with respect to the necessity of this?
Through you, Chair Freeman, to Councillor Bodley. From staff's perspective, we have had multiple discussions with MTO. I'm not really sure if Joel has anything else to add, but.
Through you, Chair Freeman, to Councillor Bodley. Certainly, we've had conversations with MTO. The pedestrian overpass is an item that is identified in the city's official plan. So while at this point in time, the MTO has said that they're not supportive of the concept, we have indicated to MTO that we still want to have future conversations with respect to the overpass. We recognize that there are, benefits to this particular development, but also to the broader community. And again, as we move forward through the official plan review, it may be the opportune time to continue to push that forward while this development starts to put shovels in the ground at the same time.
Thank you for that. Just to follow up on that, through you, Chair Freeman, is just, I would encourage staff, if there is any thing that council can do in terms of putting forward a motion or some sort of recommendation to the MTO to help bolster our case of the needs that you highlighted there, Joel, please let council know so that we can do so. Second question that I have, if I may, Councillor Freeman, Chair Freeman, is with respect to the land south of the hydro corridor. I see that in this, in the formal meeting here, we're not being asked to consider those. The question I have is around the number of jobs that are being retained on the overall site. In the previous meeting, we had heard that at its peak, Kraus Carpets had 400 jobs, and the informal meeting had suggested to us that the new site would be retaining 870 jobs. And now I'm not really seeing any of that information listed for us, and I'm presuming that that's because the intent is on the southern lands to retain those, but I'm wondering if you can provide any color to that and let me know whether or not we are in fact losing the employment numbers that we had beforehand.
Through you, Chair Freeman, to Councillor Bodley. Yeah, I think I can give you just additional information to hopefully help you understand. You're right, the lands to the south are going to be retained by the owner as employment lands, so there would be additional jobs there. But in addition to that, we have run the numbers as to how much employment, how many jobs there would be per hectare really on the lands, and it would be approximately 39 jobs per hectare. And previously, based on my calculations, there were 42 jobs per hectare. So we are quite close with what the applicant is proposing, which is the 800 square meters of non-residential space. And in addition to that, you know, the lands to the south will still remain employment. So based on that alone, I feel as though there isn't any employment function being lost, okay?
That's excellent. Thank you for that clarification. I have other questions, but they may be for the applicant.
Thank you. Council, any other questions?
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Rita. I actually just wanted to have one additional question as to what connected to what Councillor Bodley was saying. Is the reduction from 20,000 square meters to 8,000 part of the Southlands then that will be retained in terms of, I saw 20,000 square meters of non-residential has been reduced to 8,000. So is that connected to that piece?
Sorry, Joel is going to
I'll
address it.
respond through you, Chair Freeman, to Councillor Rowe. Yeah, originally there was proposals for multi-story office buildings on the southern parcel that's been excluded from this particular application. For council's awareness, the lands that are south of the hydro corridor, when ROPA 6 went through and the municipal comprehensive review was advanced by the region, it was the lands to the north of the hydro corridor that were identified for potential conversion. The lands to the south were held as regional employment lands. So the intention is that those lands would remain as part of the employment land inventory. They would be used for employment purposes. And so really this proposal is focusing on the conversion aspect, and that's why it's focusing on the lands to the north of the hydro corridor. The hydro corridor has been included in the draft plan to provide that flexibility with respect to securing the potential for protecting for the overpass at the end of the day. So yes, originally the proposal had that stronger employment component. It's not really being lost. It's protected through the regional official plan and still the city's official plan and zoning that's in place.
Other questions, Council? Councilor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I'm just curious about Conestoga Road and the parking. Is there any non-residential temporary parking conceived along Conestoga Road, like for deliveries or short-term, 15-minute, anything like that?
Through you, Councillor Freeman, to Councillor Wright, there is, transportation staff has confirmed that there is the ability to, through the redesign and reconstruction of Conestoga Road, which will have to happen once the development proceeds, because there will be a need for left turn lanes into the development, there's the opportunity to include on-street parking on Conestoga Road. As to the number of parking spaces, that's unknown yet, but there is the ability to have that included within the current width of Conestoga Road. Okay.
Other questions, council? Okay, I think that gets you off the hook for a little while, Ms. Seelock. And I know that we have one delegation, or that's registered, actually two. And so Mr. Pigeon and Mr. Boyer, I understand that you're sharing your time, your 10 minutes. So if you wanted to come forward, please.
Good evening, Chair Freeman, Mayor, and members of Council. I am Richard Boyer, the owner of what was once the Krause lands, now reimagined and rebranded as Conestoga Park Square. The journey from the initial submission to our present proposal has been a collaborative one, marked by dialogue and a shared commitment to creating a development that aligns with the vision of the city. City staff did not lend its support to the original submission that was made February 2021. Rather than viewing this as a setback, we saw it as an opportunity for meaningful collaboration. In the spirit of openness, we initiated regular meetings with the city staff to delve into their concerns. From the insights gained during our discussions, we collected inputs that were shared with our architects who went to work. Allow me to share some highlights. Media coverage last week has centered on the positive impact of converting a former factory into residential. However, it is essential to also underscore the 8.5 acres of expansive green space and parkland, which we view as the heart of this new community. This parkland will be built and maintained by us at no cost to the city. The design and location favors pedestrian, cyclist, and LRT use. Upon entering the Central Park community, the emphasis shifts away from cars, allowing residents to instead relish the ambience of the park. Sustainability is a leading feature of our design. We propose to utilize geothermal, a renewable energy source, with heat pumps in every unit for heating and cooling. Additionally, we plan to incorporate solar, e-car, and e-bike sharing, along with other initiatives. Recognizing the pressing need for housing accessibility, we are dedicated to ensuring that a portion of our development is allocated to affordable and attainable housing, reflecting our commitment to building a complete and inclusive community. Market experts have identified that once the full development is completed, residents can support 2,000 square meters of commercial uses. However, we have committed to the city a minimum of 8,000 square meters that will be located along Conestoga and Northfield roads, ensuring that the car traffic generated by these businesses does not interfere with the tranquility of the Central Park. Also, land to the south will retain zoning for employment, capable of supporting an additional 20,000 square meters with a focus on employment uses that are compatible with Conestoga Park Square. The city, region, and province have identified the construction of new housing as a priority to address the current crisis. We are aligned with this goal. Rather than waiting for lower interest rates or other conditions to change, we are prepared to begin construction now. I believe Conestoga Park Square possesses all of the elements to become a sought-after new neighborhood to live, making it a great addition for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Pigeon.
Thank you, Chair Freeman, members of council. Chris Pigeon with GSP Group. So I have a brief presentation. Richard has covered many of my points. Next slide, please.
I think you can advance the slides yourself
Oh,
just
right,
by
of course.
pressing the down.
Right, I've forgotten what municipality I'm in where you have to ask someone to advance the slides. So a little bit of history. So Krauss Flooring was established in 1959, and at the time, it was on a sprawling site, quite isolated in North Waterloo. They had their operations in Canada, the United States, and Australia, and they had 9 regional distribution centers throughout North America. They were at one time the largest carpet manufacturer in Canada. And the Conestoga site was the world headquarters for Krauss Flooring. They had 1,000 employees across the world, of which 450 were located on this site, which was their corporate headquarters, and they had $500 million in sales overall. It was in 2006 when there was a shareholder buyout that put considerable strain on and debt onto the operations, and there was a series of rounds of restructuring. Hilco Capital, which is a British international company that specialized in restructuring and refinancing, other companies acquired the property in 2012. And the original discussion that we had, Mr. Anderson will recall this, was to redevelop the site and to relocate Krauss Flooring elsewhere within the Waterloo region. So the journey of Krauss redevelopment really began in 2014. In 2012, the City of Waterloo adopted a new official plan, and the entirety of the site, not a third of the site, but the entirety of the site in that official plan was deferred, and ultimately it was dependent on a master plan exercise to determine how the site would redevelop. In 2014, Hilco began meeting with city senior and regional politicians and staffs to present the future of Krauss Flooring. And those meetings through the years included 3 mayors of the City of Waterloo, the one and only City of Waterloo CAO, Mr. Anderson, 2 regional chairs, 3 regional CAOs, and numerous city and regional department leaders of the City of Waterloo. In September of 2018, Krauss Flooring closed, and in February of 2021, Hilco submitted the original application for OPA, ZBA, and draft plan of subdivision for a future yet undetermined developer. And it was early in 2022 that Hilco sold the lands to Richard Boyer of Solar Wave Investment, who I must say significantly improved the vision for the redevelopment of the site. The 2021 proposed redevelopment had, as Rita's indicated, 15 towers up to 35 stories in height, 2,530 units, and at the time a pedestrian overpass that would connect to the center portion of the site to provide connectivity to the park's space that was proposed. The revised proposal is that's before council is now down to 12 towers with up to 35 stories in height and 3,353 units. As Richard indicated, the jewel, and he saw this right from the very beginning, the jewel of the redevelopment is the Central Park or POP space, and it's over 1 hectare in area. And just to put that into context for council, the Central Park that's in the Barrel Yards project is 1 acre in size. So this POP's park space is 2.5 times the Central Park of the Barrel Yards. Another part of this project is included the provision for the pedestrian overpass, and Joel has provided council with some context as to how that will move forward. We did a business case for MTO. It was a 150-page report. In fact, there are 7 references in municipal documents as well as provincial documents as to that pedestrian overpass and that location and why it makes sense for the City of Waterloo. The proposal before council tonight includes the new crescent-shaped municipal road allowance with on-street parking, building heights, Rita's already identified, the non-residential uses that are in the red that front on to Conestoga Road, 1 level of underground parking and structured parking through the various podiums, and a hierarchy of community trails. The Central Park is really the jewel of the development, with all of the towers, rooftop amenity spaces having views of the Central Park and POP space. And one of the most interesting thing that I found with the redevelopment that Richard identified was that the Central Park pop space is shielded from noise from Highway 85 as a result of the future buildings that are going to be constructed. And ultimately, the development will be very well connected, again, with that pedestrian overpass and series of community trails. As council is aware, the Iron Horse Trail, the market to the north, the Ion stations, Conestoga Mall, and schools to the east and west of the site. Been a total of 30 technical, not 50, 30 technical studies that have been prepared in support of the applications before council. Those reports have been extensively reviewed by agencies and departments and have culminated in the recommendations that are before council tonight. So we're very pleased to finally be here after a long journey from 2012 to bring an application forward for council's consideration. Be happy to answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, council? Councillor Bodley.
Thank you, through you, Chair Freeman. My question is about the commentary within our documents around affordable housing and the commentary that Mr. Boyer had made around affordable housing. Notwithstanding the fact that obviously I can appreciate that adding this many units to the city while we're in the midst of a significant supply crisis when it comes to housing is going to be beneficial. I'm curious if you can elaborate for me a little bit more about the, quote, desire to incorporate affordable housing into the development and the reviewing of the feasibility of it, particularly given that when we compare it to the informal meeting, it's almost 1,000 more units that are being proposed on the site. So any feedback that you can provide to provide some clarity, some color to what the thoughts and potential proposals might be when it comes to more affordable housing within the units would be appreciated.
Thank you. So, Chair Freeman, so I'll take a stab at it, and then maybe Richard will have some additional commentary. So I will say to you that from the very outset, Richard had indicated he wants to do a legacy project for the city of Waterloo, and a part of that legacy will be to provide for affordable housing, much needed housing throughout our community. So he's committed to that. I know that there have been numerous meetings that he and his team have had with affordable housing providers, extensive investigation, I'll say, in terms of pro forma, but he has indicated that he is committed to providing that. The difference between the original application and the subsequent application is, of course, a change in ownership and a change in direction, where Hilco did not have a developer, they are not a developer, but they did not have a developer with them at the table. And now with SoloWave and the purchase by 65 Northfield Drive, Inc., they're in charge of the ultimate development of this project. I think one other point that's important is that Richard has indicated that the entire residential development will be purpose-built rental, so not condominiumized. Richard, any other comments?
Through you, Chair Freeman, just one thing though the details are not worked out, it is an important component of our development, and I can promise you that the affordable, attainable housing will be of meaningful quantity.
Appreciate that. Maybe while you're still there, just a quick follow-up. Could you provide some you said you referenced Mr. Pidgeon referenced that you'd met with some affordable housing providers. Can you share with us sort of some of what those conversations looked like, even though we may be in the early stages and you haven't got sort of firm details about where things are going? Can you share what some of those conversations look like?
Well, from the early onset, and when Larry joined our team, we had a number of meetings, and quite frankly, it was a real learning experience for me because I found out that nobody has any money, and so I really thought creating the affordable housing was going to be much easier than expected. And but I think in one of your reference letters that we provided, Habitat from Humanity has provided that, and so they're one of the organizations that we have had conversations with.
Other questions of the delegate? Councillor Hanmer.
Thank you very much through you, Chair Freeman. Just following along on the affordable housing pieces of it, and I'm very pleased to see that included, and I also appreciate using the word attainable. The question that I thought my colleague was going to ask is, how long will it be maintained as affordable and attainable? We're hearing lots of things about people wanting to get into and providing that affordable housing. Our struggle is going to be, if it's only going to be short-lived, it's not going to carry us as far as we had hoped.
Through you, Chair Freeman, we're going to be doing affordable and attainable. And I also recognize from the standpoint that there are so many definitions of affordable. And, there's the CMHC, the province, even I think the city, recently had, different definitions. And so I think from the standpoint that it's easy enough for us to provide affordable housing to the CMHC, guidelines, which are there for 25 years. But we're hopeful that a component of it will be above and beyond that to some of the groups that have greater needs. And again, that is, one of the key tasks for Larry and our team on exploring that. And to give you a bit of a background, I'm a third generation from Waterloo. My grandfather, came to Waterloo in 1923 and started a lumber yard in Waterloo, and knew the Krause family, the founder of Krause, very, very well. And so Waterloo is a city that's very important to me, and we're going to be longtime owners of this project. So we really feel that addressing this subject is a responsibility from us and from this project.
That's terrific. I really appreciate hearing that and the dedication and support. I think the project is a tremendous addition to our city, and I look forward to our continued discussion about it. And thank you for your answers around affordable and attainable housing.
Councillor Rowe.
Through you, Chair. Thank you very much. I'm just curious about the 8,000 square meters again, in terms of what vision there may be for that space, like in terms of supporting the residents. Are we thinking daycare, coffee shops, that kind of thing? Is there a general idea of what you are interested in having?
Yeah, thank you. So, Chair Freeman, so Solo Wave, or 65 Northfield Drive, has had discussions with a food store provider, which is committed to in Building 1, which is at the corner of Northfield Drive and Conestoga. And there's a minimum requirement of 1,000 square meters in that space. There is a requirement for a daycare facility in the project in a location to be determined, although it is anticipated that it will be, again, along Conestoga Road. And there is also a commitment from the developer to provide live-work units. And there's specified regulations in the zoning bylaw that's before council tonight that identifies how that distribution of non-residential uses is to take place, again, predominantly along Conestoga Road.
Thank you.
Councillor Vasek.
Thanks, through you, Chair Freeman. I'm thinking about noise for the people who live in the building, and so curious about some of your mitigation efforts, given especially that the hope is for affordable and attainable housing for, I didn't hear the number, but I assume you meant 25 years or more, maybe? And that it's purpose-built rental. If we're thinking about people who need to rent and people who need to use affordable and attainable, exposing them to increased noise versus someone who might live in a quieter neighborhood because they have the means, the financial means to. So thinking about justice in that kind of way. So do you have what are your mitigation efforts for people who live in the building? Very nice that they'll have it when they're in the common outdoor spaces, but what about when they're living?
Yeah, Chair Freeman. So a preliminary acoustical assessment was completed for the entirety of the site. As council can appreciate, it's surrounded by roads, the expressway on the west, Northfield Drive, and the LRT to the north. Industrial uses including a hydro transformer station to the east. So preliminary noise study was completed and vibration study, and there were recommendations that additional noise studies be undertaken on a block by block or building by building basis, and that when the design of the building is known, of course, that acoustical measures would be built into the design and or recommendations, whether those are architectural features, for example, glazed windows, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea is that before any building moves forward, that there will be additional noise assessments that will be undertaken. And there's a holding provision that applies that has to be lifted on a block by block basis to ensure the mitigation measures are employed.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. This is obviously a fascinating project, moving from an industrial, semi-industrial use to residential, and because of that, and because the conversion is introducing more green space and more permeable surface area, I'm wondering where else that might be enhanced. And the reason why I'm asking that is because our stormwater regulations in Ontario haven't been updated in 20 years. We're experiencing more extreme precipitation. This is purpose-built rental. And so the impacts to residents from extreme precipitation and also extreme heat events are more likely in the future. You're building for the future. And so I'm just wondering what you've sort of maybe got in your back pocket in terms of addressing those climate considerations.
Well, Chair Freeman, as Richard indicated, they are proposing to incorporate some significant sustainability elements into this project. And one of the interesting things about this site is that it does not fall within any region of Waterloo well fields. So it is permitted to have geothermal, where the vast majority of sites in Waterloo region are not permitted to have geothermal, to avoid impacts with regard to those wells and groundwater systems, which is of course where we get our potable water supply. So geothermal is the number one opportunity, I'll say, to specifically address climate change from new development, because of course geothermal equates to huge energy savings and the use or lack thereof of non-fossil fuels. In terms of residents on the site, we talk about sun shadow effects, and that was a part of an urban design submission that was made for this project. And one of the interesting things today, in the past we used to look at making sure that there was sufficient sun that was available to open spaces. But today it's equally important to make sure that we have shadow effects. And those shadow effects and sun shadow effects will be a requirement through the future master plans that are required for the overall development of the project. So I think that there are sustainability elements that are being incorporated into the project. So certainly Richard is going to do everything in his power to deal with or his commitment to climate change. But then there are other elements relative to, I'll say, the comfort level of residents that will also be looked after through that process.
Just a quick follow-up. And so you do have underground parking as part of this project. And so I'm wondering, in the event of extreme rainfall, what's the mitigation there for the parking underneath?
So we'll be following provincial standards to ensure that we're maintaining proper targets relative to stormwater and climate change relative to rainfall. So if the provincial standard changes, then we'll have to change with those standards.
I think we better hope that the provincial standard changes.
Well, council?
Any other questions? Councillor Roach?
Thank you for your presentation, and Mr. Boyer, thank you for your family's 100-year dedication to the City of Waterloo. I got a chance to walk around the property, and I think what really impressed me and intrigued me is the Central Park area. So just as Mr. Pigeon had talked about, it's bordered by the Conestoga Parkway and Conestoga Road. I think the important question is the Central Park Conestoga Central Park or Conestoga Central Park?
Through you, Chair Freeman, it will be the Conestoga. And it is interesting that there is online a bit of a history on why we have the A or the O. And I think it just gets down to a spelling mistake about over 100 years ago.
Thank you.
Any other questions, council? Seeing none, we do have a registered delegation. Ashwin and Amali. Welcome, Ashwin.
Good evening, Council. So good to see you all again. I've been attending quite a few of these public consultation meetings, and I'd like to thank staff for working very hard. Like, there's at least 2 of these happening every month. Like, you understand the housing crisis, and Council also understands the housing crisis, and you all work really hard to get all of these housing built. And as someone that lives in Waterloo's current largest purpose-built rental building, I really look forward to more purpose-built rental units because the quality of life that these units offer is just phenomenal, and we definitely need more of these. And like a lot of valid points that Council raised, I would also love to see the bridge that connects the pedestrian bridge that connects the LRT to this particular construction site. I have some advice for staff. Instead of sending emails to the province, have you considered attending a stag and do party? Like, maybe that's a way to maybe get that done. We could even maybe rezone Queen's Park and build a casino, maybe, if you attend those parties, I hear. So anyway, jokes apart, I do not see much opposition coming from the province's side if mayor and council lobby with the local representatives and the premier or whoever, the housing minister or the transportation minister. I don't know what the demarcation of duties are. So whoever's in charge, and I don't see any opposition for this bridge, and this bridge would be really important for us to access the public space Central Park of Conestoga. So that's one part that I would love to see here. The other part that I would like to talk to is, like I mentioned earlier, council has approved so many buildings, but unfortunately a lot of these buildings sit vacant, and maybe it's interest rates, maybe it's not profitable for developers to build, maybe it's labor shortages, but it frustrates me to see all these permits being handed out by council and then housing advocates like us coming and asking for more buildings, but the shovels are not hitting the ground, and it's a huge frustration. So maybe council should think about adding more teeth to these zoning changes and planning approvals, because let's say if a building is not completed in, say, 5, 6, 7 years, depending on the size of the building, why don't we charge an additional fee because we handed over the permits? So, and then this can potentially be flipped for a profit. Why doesn't the city deserve a share of the profit? And we can use that to invest in more affordable housing. So these shovels not hitting the ground is a big bottleneck. I know it cannot be solved tonight, but council does have to think about it long term when approving all these housing units. And the other thing is, I do appreciate that there are going to be affordable, attainable units. How many? I was not able to find in the things that I read, so maybe I did not read properly, but yeah. So we do not know how many, so maybe if that's highlighted a bit more prominently, is it 5%, 10%? How is it going to be, and how are the distributions going to be? Is it going to be in the lower floors? Like, are the affordable units all going to be segregated to one tower? So these are kind of important details that we need to know when discussing stuff like this. So I would have liked to see that as well. And we also have a commitment from the owners of the property that they're going to build right away, and they have financing, and it's going to be affordable and attainable. Well, I would love to see all of that, but what if it does not happen? What measures or tools can the city take to make sure these promises are kept? So we need to think about that. And with that thought in mind, thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you. Any questions, council, for the delegation? Mayor McCabe.
Thank you, through you, Chair Freeman. Just wanted to ask the delegate if he knew that mayors like myself and mayors across the province, particularly the mayors of the 29 biggest cities in the province, if you were aware that we have been calling on the Premier and the Minister Calandra to do something like that. We were calling it a use it or lose it clause. So we certainly have been advancing that and asking the province to continue to look in their own backyard. We've certainly done a lot of work, and we appreciate the $1 million we got from the province to streamline, do some work in our own planning department, but we've reminded them that they need to do some work on their own because there are developments that we know we feel should be going ahead, but we're waiting on provincial approvals and responses and things like that. But yeah, that's definitely something we've raised with them. So thank you for just wanted to make sure you were aware of that.
Well, thanks for sharing that with
Okay,
me,
thank
Mayor.
you.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, thank you. I'll echo the mayor's comments too, to say that I appreciate your delegation because some of the points that you raise are points that we're trying to advance with the province, and so it's always good to say these are the things that we're hearing in our council chambers. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair.
One of the questions that came up, I don't know whether the applicant could provide some insight as they're advancing their detailed design, if they've thought about percentages where it relates to affordable housing, or if it's too early in the process.
Chair Freeman, again, it's still early, and I think it's going to depend upon some of these, let's call it partnerships, but we're also prepared to go it alone on ourselves. But again, that's one of the items that our team still has yet to work on. But again, it is our commitment that it will be a meaningful component.
Thank you very much. With regard to the next steps, I'm just now going to ask if there's any registered delegations here this evening that would like to contribute or provide comment on this application. If you would, please raise your hand and approach the microphone, and you will be provided with 5 minutes to provide comments. Seeing none. If there's no more delegations, this formal public meeting is concluded, and the application is now open to council for a motion and debate. And Mayor McCabe.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Freeman. Just had another question of the proponent, Richard. We had received a letter late last week from the previous owners, and so I just wanted to ask if you've had a chance to review it and if there was anything in that correspondence that you feel would warrant a delay in council's decision tonight.
So I became aware of the letter only on Friday when I was here for a meeting at City Hall. And I've not had the opportunity to fully consult with our legal team as of yet to, quite frankly, understand what the intent of the letter was, and also to understand how we would formulate a response to the letter. And nonetheless, my company, 65 Northfield Incorporate, is the sole owner of this site. And I want to emphasize my early remarks that this has been a collaborative process, working with the city, and I'm proud and encouraged by the city staff's endorsement of our applications. And I eagerly anticipate the ongoing partnership with the city in the realization of the Conestoga Park Square vision.
That's good to hear. Thank you for sharing that with us. Then with that in mind, with that assurance, I would like to make a motion to approve this recommendation from staff.
Did you want to read the script, Mayor I think
I can, or do you want to pull that up on?
So you're gonna put something on the table.
Oh, you need me to read the whole thing? Okay.
And then
Okay.
I guess we'll open it up to council for debate of the motion.
Okay. So you want me to read the entire, from this? Just here, okay. Okay, so whereas council has considered all written and oral submissions, and whereas council has considered the professional opinions of planning staff, therefore be it resolved that council approve report IPPW 2023-059, that council approve official plan amendment number 32, zoning bylaw amendment Z 21-03, and draft plan of subdivision 30T-21401, 525 and 565 Conestoga Road, in accordance with the with Section 8 recommendations of IPPW 2023-059 as amended to correct Section 8B10. Do I need to read this all? Okay, you can reference the part that's on the screen to save me having to read this all. Is that big enough for people to read? Okay, items 1, 2, and 3 were amended as staff spoke to at the beginning of her presentation. Can you read that, council? Oh. So, do you need me to keep reading? Okay. Okay. And that council delegate authority to the city's director of planning to make administrative modifications to any standard condition of subdivision approval and/or site-specific condition of subdivision in relation to draft plan of subdivision 30T-21401.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Hanmer. So this motion is now open to council for consideration. And yes, Councillor Bodley. Of course you can, yeah, for sure. We've put a motion on the table. We can ask as many or as few questions as we'd like to at this time. It was easier to do it with a motion so we knew what we were considering.
Great, thank you. Through you, Chair Freeman. I wonder if staff maybe would want to comment on the legal letter that Mayor McCabe had referenced. I know that Mr. Boyer had suggested that there was nothing in there that was of concern to him. Is there anything that exposes us to any legal risk from the city's perspective? Are there any concerns that staff have about the legal letter?
Through you, Chair Freeman, to Councillor Bodley. Staff only received the letter on Friday, so it does raise a few questions. Some of them are legal in nature, but from what we've been able to review at this point, with respect to the planning items that are listed, we believe we've addressed those within the staff report, but if there are issues or concerns, again, we'll continue to work through those issues and concerns through the detailed design. This is really laying the land use framework for the development. And again, the next stage will be detailed design, and through that, there will be certainly refinements along the way. And we'll work constructively with the developer on those items through the detailed design process.
Thank you. And just for clarification then, similarly to the proponent here, staff have no reason to suggest that we should not be considering the motion that's being put on the table by Mayor McCabe today?
Through you, Chair Freeman, we're really in council's hands. If council wants more information with respect to the letter that was advanced, certainly we could take that away and return. But from the planning items that are within the letter, we're sufficiently satisfied that our staff report covers those items. With respect to questions around ownership of the property, I think Mr. Boyer answered that question at the podium. And if he's satisfied, then staff are satisfied.
Counselor Bassick.
I'm not sure I'm satisfied with the response to this question. So I'm allowed to express an opinion on the planning piece now that we've opened it up for discussion? Okay. I think as far as planning goes, I support the recommendations you're putting forward. It's a thoughtful design with good heart behind it, adds to the housing stock, and you're considering affordable and attainable. That all sounds really great. But when we get a letter from a lawyer, like, for example, on a constituent matter, the expectation is that we're to work with the clerks on that and kind of take a step back, right? Is that correct? Am I wrong on that? Have I been misunderstanding that the whole time? Like, if it's just on a small scale, a letter from a lawyer sort of means, as a counselor, I'm to step back from a matter?
So honestly, Councillor Bassick, if you'd like to receive advice, legal advice related to risk or potential risk to the city, we can take a recess and go in camera, and you can explore those questions associated with legal risk, because those are typically in camera advice that we would receive as council. So I'm looking for some direction from you on that. If you feel that you would like to do that, we can certainly take a few minutes and go in camera and do that.
Yes, I would like to do that, because as it stands right now, I would vote no to this, and I don't really want to be voting no to more housing ultimately. So I'm in a bit of a pickle. Voting no to housing isn't really my brand, but taking a potential legal risk I don't understand is not something I can do at this time or any time. I'm very sorry to do this, like, honestly, but I'm quite uncomfortable.
Our in-house legal counsel is not in chambers right now. So even if we do step out, we won't have in-house legal to provide advice on this matter. The options that are open to council is we have closed this formal meeting, so we can seek to defer our decision on this with your intention to seek legal advice. The earliest opportunity for council to seek that legal advice would be Monday of next week. And so that absolutely is your privilege as a member of council. If you'd like to put that on the table, you can. And we would need a seconder for the motion to defer.
Yes, I'd like to put that on the table.
Okay.
Or maybe no?
Through the chair to Councillor Vasek, we always have prepared some standard language around deferring a decision, so Rook can provide that to you. Rook, can I just make one quick amendment?
Process-wise, do we have to vote on?
We would vote on the deferral, and then from a process perspective, because the formal public meeting is closed, this application can come back to council at whatever time that we ask for it to return. So if it's to receive that advice next Monday, you could ask for this application come back then. You could also ask for it to come back in January. And you can make no time determination right now too. The clerk's giving me the high sign.
Just, sorry, if I could, Chair Freeman, I would recommend that rather than establishing dates to when things are coming back, because we may not be able to respond to all the questions by Monday, and we may not be ready to come back. But I think staff would make the best efforts based on the what we know is availability of members today for a meeting next Monday, since it's not on the schedule. So we could look at that and then come back. But certainly you are able to, we do have a motion on the floor, but you can move an amending motion and deal with that first. And then either on the success or failure of that motion, then consider the one that's on the floor already.
Yep, thank you. So
Can I
Councillor
ask, just
Bassick
a point of order, can I ask a question before we move too much further on that point? I'm just wondering if it might be possible to go into closed and get, if if council decides they want to go into closed, if we decided that was the direction we wanted to take, if we could try and get legal counsel just over a hybrid meeting to do that, or over like even the phone or something like that. Is that an option?
I'm looking at Mr. Anderson and the clerks. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take a 5-minute recess. I think staff know what we're trying to achieve here tonight. The mayor's asked some technical questions about availability. Why don't we just take a breather, 5-minute? We understand what Councillor Vasik's looking for. If we think we can achieve that this evening, then we will. And if not, then we'll defer. Is that okay? Just take 5 minutes, give staff a chance to think about everything that we've heard, and then, so it's 20 to 8, let's say. Is 5 minutes enough, Mr. Anderson? Would you like 10?
5 minutes should be sufficient.
Okay,
Yeah, we'll
that's
get our
great.
game plan ready. Yeah,
Let's
thank you.
just do that. Okay, council, we're just gonna reconvene. I know that, the mayor's just stepped out, I'm sure she's on her way in. I think, we have a suggested motion that we might just take a few minutes and go in camera to get a little bit more information from, anyways, Councillor Bassick, if you want to put the motion on the table.
Yep, thanks, Chair Freeman. That council hold a closed meeting for the purposes of considering the following subject matter: litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, brackets, planning matter.
Okay, is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Wright. All those in favor? Okay, then we're gonna slip into an enclosed meeting for, it should be fairly short. I hope that those who have joined us tonight will be patient with us. Thank you, council and staff, and to those that are with us this evening, thank you for your patience. At this point, we have a motion on the table. The mayor moved the motion, and I'm trying to remember who seconded it. Councillor Hanmer seconded it. And the motion is now open for additional questions, debate. Councillor Vasek has received answers to her questions. But council, was there any other questions that you had for staff on this application? Any comments that anyone would like to make? Okay, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you through you, Chair. We have, over the last, well, my time in office, about a year or so, have met a couple times to discuss this development, and I think the vision for it is really phenomenal, right? This is, I mean, we've talked about it a couple times tonight about the need for housing, affordable, attainable in our community. We know that we have a housing target that the province has given us of 16,000 units with less than 10 years now, and I think this project is one that really delivers that in a really imaginative and unique way. And particularly one of the things that I like about this development is that it's taking an employment site that had become very run down. I mean, if people can visualize that, and is going to turn it into a really dynamic, vibrant home for thousands of people. And so I think this is I thank them for bringing this project forward, and I thank Rita and Natalie and Joel and others on the team who have worked really hard on this and have delivered a report with a lot of detail. But also, I think we need to recognize that this is a complex site. It's a big site. There's a lot of moving parts, so to speak, and there's a lot of work still to do because this is very much at a conceptual stage. There's no detail to a lot of it, and that will come through conversations as Richard had talked about, working in partnership with staff and with some, potentially housing development or affordable housing developers. And working in partnership and collaboratively, I think the will is there to solve those problems and solve those issues. So I really am excited about this project and what the report that staff have produced and what's before us tonight. So thank you to Richard and the team for bringing this forward, and to our team of Rita, Joel, and Natalie for the work that you've done on this.
I'm just going to make some comments. This is a transformative project for Ward 4. In addition to it, repurposing employment lands and considering how mixed uses can function together and employment uses can still be maintained. This is really the first project of its ilk that is going to lean into the station area transit planning that we've done. And it's interesting to me that it resides within the Conestoga transit area, given that the Northfield transit site is closer as the crow flies. I realize that the plans for this property are still very much as concepts, and that there's a lot of work ahead of us as a city to continue to work with Richard and his team as you hash through the concept plans and create more formal plans, and as you consider the language that resides within these bylaws. And I trust that we're delegating authority to the city's director of planning to make administrative modifications to the conditions of subdivision approval, site-specific conditions of subdivision in relation to the draft plan. So to the extent possible, we've given additional control to our director of planning to continue the ongoing consultations together with your team. And And recognizing that you indicated that you didn't see any reason not to go ahead earlier this evening, this is why we are moving ahead with this recommendation. So with that on the table, council, is there any other commentary that you'd like to make? We need the housing, there is no question. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Go forth, Richard, please build. Okay, council, we are on to zoning bylaw amendment Z 2310, University of Waterloo, 155 and 165 University Avenue West. This is a formal public meeting to consider item 11B, zoning bylaw amendment Z 2310, University of Waterloo, 155 and 165 University Avenue West. Any persons who want further notice of this application, including passage of any bylaw, should sign the appropriate register in the binder located on the desk at the rear of the council chambers. If there is more than one binder, please make sure you are signing the appropriate one. Will the clerk please advise council of the method used to give notice of the meeting and the dates notice was given?
Notice was advertised in the Waterloo Chronicle on September 21st and the KW Record on November 16th, 2023, and mailed or emailed on September 19th, 2023 to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property to public agencies. An informal public meeting was not held.
Thank you. The planner, Amanda Wazinski, and if I've said your name wrong, please let me know how to say it correctly. Okay. Will now give a brief overview of the application.
All right, thank you, Chair Freeman, Mayor McCabe, and members of council. Staff have received a rezoning application for the lands municipally known as 155 and 165 University Avenue West from GSP Group on behalf of the University of Waterloo. My presentation today will summarize the proposal and speak to my recommendations to council. The subject lands are located on the east side of University Avenue West and are east of the University of Waterloo main campus. The subject lands are bisected by the region of Waterloo Rail Corridor that operates the ION and also has CN Rail on it. The southern portion of the subject lands are vacant and are currently being used as a parking lot for the university. The northern portion is occupied by an existing residence known as Claudette Miller Hall. And then in regards to the official plan, the subject lands are designated as employment, academic, and mixed-use high-density residential, and they're also located within a major node. And then in regards to zoning, the subject lands are zoned as Holding University College with a height permission of 81 meters. The applicant is not proposing to amend the base zoning of the subject lands. Rather, they are proposing site-specific provisions to recognize existing development and context and to facilitate the creation of a new student residence. Staff note the subject lands are zoned with the holding due to being within 75 meters of the rail corridor per section 3R1 of the zoning bylaw. And then in regards to the proposed development, the applicant is proposing to construct a 12-story residence for approximately 510 students. The proposed residence will be located in the northern corner of the subject lands along the rail corridor and is expected to connect to the existing pedestrian bridge on University Avenue. The applicant is also proposing to construct a second pedestrian bridge that will cross the rail corridor and connect to the existing student residence in 165, known as Claudette Miller Hall. It's staff's understanding that in addition to creating a completely enclosed pedestrian pathway, which will protect students from winter elements and other seasonal elements, services such as mail and dining are to be shared between the new residents and the existing. And then in regards to zoning, to clearly demonstrate the site-specific provisions, staff have identified the proposed relief from the zoning bylaw in relation to each property. In regards to 165 Avenue West, which contains the existing student residence, the proposed reductions are technical in nature and will not impact the functionality or visual appearance of Claudette Miller Hall, except for the proposed pedestrian bridge. Since the pedestrian bridge is being proposed, a reduction in the side yard setback from 5 meters to 0 meters was required, as the bridge will be crossing the property line and is viewed as a structure within the zoning bylaw. The existing residence will not be permitted a 0 meter setback, only the pedestrian bridge. The draft zoning bylaw includes language that speaks to this as well. Relief is also required to permit a structure within 15 meters of the rail corridor. Similarly, this is a technical reduction, and only the pedestrian bridge will be permitted. No sensitive uses or resident spaces will be permitted within the 15 meters. And then in regards to 155 University Avenue West, the applicant is seeking relief to 2 performance regulations and relief for a general regulation. Specifically, the applicant is proposing a 0-meter street line setback along University Avenue West. This is to allow for the residents to connect to the existing pedestrian bridge. The residence itself is meeting the minimum street setback of 5 meters. The applicant is also proposing a 0-meter side yard setback to facilitate the pedestrian bridge. Similarly, the residence itself will have a 15-meter setback. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment has specific language that speaks to this as well. And then similarly, relief is also required to permit the structure within 15 meters of the rail corridor. This is a technical reduction, and again, no sensitive uses or residential space will be permitted within the 15 meters. And then in regards to my staff recommendation, staff are recommending approval of staff report IPPW 2023-053. Staff are also recommending council approve the draft zoning bylaw that implements the site-specific regulations in terms of the side yard, street setback, and to permit a structure within 15 meters of the rail corridor. However, staff are not recommending the approval of the bylaw that would lift the holding this evening. Rather, staff are recommending council not pass the implementing bylaw for the holding until written confirmation has been received from the region of Waterloo, confirming that all noise and vibration requirements specified in the zoning bylaw are satisfied. Staff can confirm the applicant, region, CN, and the city have been in active discussions and are awaiting technical approval. Staff are recommending this unique approach as the university is targeting a fall 2026 opening, and this would allow the university to finalize building permits with confidence. I emphasize a building permit would not be issued until the city receives confirmation from the region, and as CN, would receive confirmation from the region as they are the rail corridor owner, and the holding bylaw is passed. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of staff, council? Seeing none? Oh, Councillor Rowe.
Through you, Chair. Sorry, I just had to find my question. Thank you very much for that report. I'm wondering if, actually, this will be for staff, possibly. So I'm actually thinking about the University Gateway funding project, and I'm wondering if any of those funds could be used here in this situation to enhance some of the streetscape adjacent to the proposed residence and maybe between the Laurel Trail between University Avenue and Seagram Drive. Joel?
Yeah, through you, Chair Freeman, in response to Councillor Rowe's question. Maybe just a little background as well. Council heard earlier this year the Town and Gown report update that indicated there's a significant deficit of student housing within the community. And again, this project is looking to add a significant number of student housing beds to the market with a very tight construction time frame. So Amanda's done a great job of kind of framing out how to move this forward. But it's a great question around the University Avenue Gateway strategy. That's another initiative that council has approved, and we've worked with Laurier University to do some enhancements to their campus along University Avenue. This is another great opportunity to do that as well. And so staff can certainly take that away. And as the detailed designs, which will be the next phase of this, are advanced, we can certainly explore with the University of Waterloo how to leverage some of the funds that council has available to enhance the streetscape. And I really like the idea around the Laurel Trail, enhancing that pedestrian travel route that connects to the park and to the university. So excellent idea. We will take that away and we'll advance that through the next round of discussions.
Great, thank you so much.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, another question for staff just about the multi-use trail and how that would potentially be impacted during construction and what the workaround would be. That's such a major thoroughfare.
Through you, Councillor, or Chair Freeman, to Councillor Wright. Through the existing site plan approval bylaw that the city has, the university is exempt from site plan control. So we'll work with them through the building permit process to ensure that there's proper construction management plan in place to set the limits of construction to make sure adjacent trees or trails or any other type of sensitive space is well protected and not impacted negatively by the development. So there'll have to be some careful consideration. As Amanda indicated, one of the elements that the university is proposing is the bridge that does eventually go over the existing rail corridor and connect to Claudette Miller Hall. During that construction, there may be points of time when the trail is closed, and we can work with the university on identifying options to try and ensure the safe travel of pedestrians. Maybe there's an alternative route that can be temporarily established, but we'll work with the university collaboratively with it. Amanda's done a great job with that to date, and we'll continue to do that going forward.
Any additional questions, council? Seeing none, we have one delegation, Kristen Barsdale from GSP Group. Welcome, Kristen.
Good evening, Chair Freeman and members of council. I'm here representing the University of Waterloo with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. I will note that we have representatives from the university here to answer any technical questions that may come up with respect to the residence management and construction. And we also have a representative here this evening from Diamond & Schmidt, who is the lead architect on the proposed development. I'll be honest with you, Amanda has touched on a lot of the stuff that I had included in my presentation, so I will try to keep it incredibly brief. You're quite aware of where this is. Amanda touched on the site location, so I will breeze through this slide. What you see on the screen right now is the site plan concept that's been prepared in support of the proposed development. You can see the proposed building, where it's positioned on the parking lot or within the parking lot, and its proximity to the existing LRT line, as well as the trail along the LRT that we spoke of. What you'll see on the top right-hand side of the corner is the proposed new enclosed pedestrian crossing to Claudette Miller Hall to the north. And what you'll see on the mid left-hand side of the screen is the existing pedestrian crossing to the campus. Briefly go through the proposed development in terms of what it's going to look like. So this is a view of the 12-story residence as if you were coming down University Avenue towards the rail line, towards King Street. What you see here is a south elevation. So this is if you were going south on University Avenue towards Westmount Road. And then the two end elevations. One on the left-hand side is quite obviously the connection or the elevation that you would see that provides for the pedestrian connection to Claudette Miller Hall. And then the other one that you see on the west-hand side of the screen is what you would see if you were standing face on University Avenue. You can see the second-story pedestrian connection again, existing connection tying into the existing pedestrian connection. Amanda's presentation did include the landscape concept that's been prepared and reviewed with the city. This was included as part of our urban design brief. Just a couple of things to note that I wanted to touch on. You'll see when you come into the parking lot, there is a round or a U drop-off area. This is for deliveries as well as student drop-off, resident drop-off, right in front of the main doors of the building. You'll notice at the rear of the building, which is the area in light gray, there's an extensive courtyard amenity space and seating area that's provided for future residents. This area has been designed to incorporate landscape beds, seating areas, meeting areas, congregation areas, as well as been designed to provide for enhanced connections to the existing trail, the Laurel Trail that exists to the north. In addition, there was some extensive consultation leading into this project. Some of the feedback that was retained or expressed was the desire or the request to ensure that we're trying to maintain as many trees along this property and around this property. This area of the parking lot does have some existing vegetation, so there has been an extensive effort to try to maintain as many trees as possible, as well as provide for some additional landscape features to green up the site. This is a colored rendering prepared for the building as if you were heading south on University Avenue towards Westmount. Again, you can see the existing pedestrian connection that provides for the crossing of University. This was included in Amanda's presentation. This is a rendering of the main entrance to the building, so that drop-off area I specified. This is the main access for all residents, those visiting the building, etc. And then this is the schematic showing the connection between the proposed building and Claudette Miller Hall over the LRT. I believe I'm going to end my presentation there because Amanda has touched on all of the provisions in great length and detail as to what's being requested with the zoning bylaw amendment. As she touched on, we're seeking some slight reductions and variances to some of the regulations in the bylaw, as well as requesting to remove the holding provision that's on the site as it pertains to rail noise and vibration. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have or call up other members of the team if you had any technical questions in nature.
Questions, Council? Councillor Bassick.
Thanks through you, Chair Freeman. Thanks both of you for your presentations. From far away, the building looks beige, but from up close, and I really like color, but from up close, it looks like wood and natural and sustainable, and then glass, which kind of is interesting because it, I've been trying to think of the word the whole time, so I'm just gonna need some help. You know, when you put buildings kind of, you make them have some variety, what's the word? Articulation. Thank you. I've literally been trying to think of it for 5 minutes. Articulation. And here you've done it kind of with the glass a little bit in the inside, which probably gives you a bit more space in the building, I'm guessing. So I'm curious to know more about if it's supposed to be sustainable, like architect-wise, whoever that is out there, I'm not sure. And if it's supposed to, so it's supposed to give you maybe a natural feel when you're walking down the trail, maybe. So this isn't for approval in any way, but it's just to sort of say, I'd be interested in a little bit more reason behind it. And then if it's not about sustainability, is there something we can do there that will further enhance it through site plan aesthetically and fun, because it's kind of a fun, it's nice, a nice walk there. So with color or other elements, green elements. Anyways, you get my point.
Through you, Chair Freeman, if you would indulge, I would invite Duncan Bates up from the architectural firm, who can give you probably a lot more articulate response to those questions than I can.
Sure, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair Freeman, I apologize, I've lost my voice a little bit. The question's great. The building is designed to meet net zero targets. The University of Waterloo has an incredibly ambitious net neutral campus-wide target that's established for all of their new buildings and retrofits to existing buildings. So the intent and the design intent behind this building is very much in keeping with those targets. It's a very high-performing envelope. The material you're referring to is actually a brick. The glass itself is triple paned to ensure maximum possible performance from a thermal standpoint. And the patterning of the facade is informed with conversations with the Indigenous Advisory Circle at the University of Waterloo, and it's pulling from ideas of tapestry and traditional Indigenous garments. So, yeah. I'll add to some earlier comments and some earlier thoughts about the conditions along Laurel Trail. It too has been the recipient of considerable feedback from that same Indigenous community with respect to the preservation of existing trees, but also the integration of gathering circles for ceremonial use and strengthening the relationship to Laurel Trail for this building and the campus as a whole.
I feel like when you were talking, it was like, that star that goes, the more you know. So that was really helpful background and context for me. Thank you.
I'm here for you.
Other questions? Councillor Bodley.
Excuse me, through you, Chair Freeman. My question is just about the broader sort of vision for the parking lot in general, and around whether or not how the university came to the decision as to the number of residents that were needed at this point in time. We certainly hear a lot about the growth in the university and the number of students that are coming here. And so I wonder if there is a broader vision longer term for the remainder of the parking lot to also have residents in the future, and what goes into the decision-making process for the university to come with the proposal that they came today.
Through you, Chair Freeman, I'm actually going to ask Duncan to step up to the mic again, because I believe that he has a lot more context and history from the university to probably answer that question.
Through you, Chair Freeman, I'm going to invite another colleague. And this isn't an attempt to pass the buck. I was heavily involved, but I'm going to ask Wade McCauley to join from Campus Housing. Wade and I have worked together for the last 3 years, putting together a facility strategy, looking at all of the student residence housing on campus. And that was a thoroughly comprehensive analysis of the existing stock and the future projected stock. The resultant 510 beds at this particular site was a combination of simple math, finances, but also understanding sustainably what we could bring online now and take offline for retrofitting. But before I put my foot in my mouth, I'll hand it to Wade, who can perhaps give a bit more color.
Very high level, yes. In 2020 through to 2022, Campus Housing worked on what we called our Campus Housing Facility Strategy that outlined our growth pattern and what our spaces would need over the next coming 10 to 15 years. And the first move in that was to provide capacity in order to take buildings offline for required deferred maintenance and to help with fragmental growth during that time. The growth addressed around 300 required beds by 2026, with an additional 200 beds for capacity for other buildings coming offline, whether that be through potential renovations or even the concept of demolition of underperforming buildings. Those decisions are still to be made, but ultimately the required need during that gap. And there's some underlying ambitious goals around what we're calling mixed-year housing that would help support a larger number of upper-year students and graduate students in our communities while still supporting the first-year guarantee. So that first approach is mainly around the 300 beds, but there's still more within that 500. Of those 500 beds included, just high level, 10 of those would be considered dawn suites. So focusing on those 500, the 300 is mainly around the removal for renovations and then 200 for growth.
That's really interesting, and I appreciate that that insight. And I guess just as a follow-up to that, as we're looking at this particular site, and I don't know whether or not this site is in the floodplain and whatnot, but is there, when you look at the site in the long term, is there a concern about removing parking or the need for underground parking at some point in time if more buildings were to be built around the site? Or is this just not is the intent that this is it, that's all, that there won't be any more building on this site in the future?
Maybe Rob, Duncan, others. So from my perspective within Campus Housing, there was a lot of consultation of selecting this site, but for additional residential spaces, it's not our ideal spot for a second build. And I know the campus master plan is currently being reviewed, but I don't know if Rob, there's anything, or Duncan. I'll defer.
Thank you. I can share a little bit of insight. So certainly the 2009 Campus Master Plan had identified a number of parking lots that were great potential sites for new buildings. With ultimately, if we did end up infilling those existing parking lots, that we would need to build a parking structure on the East Campus. At this point, however, we are looking to, the university is looking to hire a sustainable transportation position, so a person who would undertake a thorough review of the parking requirements. Of course, since the 2009 Campus Master Plan was developed, the LRT has come to campus, we've got the bus terminal, and so there's been a lot of changing dynamics with respect to how people commute to work, and so with enhanced bike pathways and other transit accommodations, we're hoping that we don't need to maintain the same level of parking. At the moment, though, for this particular building, we're not going to lose any parking spaces. So anything that's lost because of the new footprint of the building will be accommodated just by a small extension of that existing parking lot, which we refer to as parking lot A.
That's great, thank you.
Other questions, council? Seeing none, thank you. I'll now ask if there's any registered delegations, and if there is, please come forward. Ashwani?
Well, hello again, Council. My name is Ashwin Annamalai. I'm a resident of Waterloo. So I'm really happy to see this proposal by my alma mater, the University of Waterloo. The Warriors might not be the best sports team, but we do get the housing thing right. So I'm really proud of it. I know there are a lot of Golden Hawks around the table. I don't know if there are very many candors around, but I would ask you to encourage your alma maters to do something along these lines, because we know student housing is really hard time and again. We are short of 5,000 beds is what they say, and a lot of students are living in very precarious housing conditions, so we need more of these. I know council did not increase the enrollment count by 1,600%. Council does not have a $106 million surplus, but council has to deal with all the problems that comes from all of this. So we do need more of these, and well, I'm happy that more housing is being built, but it is sad to see some green space go and the parking lot stay. I'll be honest with you, but we should not let perfect be the enemy of good, and we should fully support this, and I hope to see like more housing initiatives in the future by the universities. I'd like to touch upon another point that...
Sorry, Ashwani, I'm just going to pause for one moment. If I have a point of order that I have to deal with.
Okay.
So my apologies.
No problem.
Is there anyone that needs to declare a pecuniary interest around the council table?
Thank you for that, Councillor Freeman. My apologies to my council colleagues. Literally, while they were just talking, I realized my wife works at UW. And so I will be declaring a disclosure here, and I will be leaving. Thank you.
Thank you. My apologies. Ashwani, you were talking about student housing and meeting that need.
Right, can I continue now?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
It's been an interesting evening, truly.
You know, but we'll all get to a good outcome at the end of this, so I'm really happy. You know, council is really committed to affordable housing and solving the housing crisis, but when council relies on developers promising to have affordable units, I see it as just having 2 units, and I hope council also sees it the same way. Again, let's not let perfect be the enemy of good, but when we are not able to put a number to affordable housing, and it's units, it's just 2. If they say unit, it's just 1. So that's one of the comments. We cannot rely on the generosity and benevolence of corporations to solve the housing crisis. And then I also understand, like, I'm incapable of like taking the shovel and going and breaking ground. I understand that too at the same time. So, and another thing is usually when there are any return submissions, they're added to the packet. Last time around, there was a return submission that was not added, maybe because of solicitor-client privilege or something like that. But when it's in an open meeting, there could have at least been a sheet in the docket saying this has been redacted due to solicitor-client privilege or whatever, so that anyway, we knew there was something in there and we don't know the content of it. If it's supposed to be out in the public, I would request staff to put it out, even after the fact. If it's not supposed to be out in public, now that we know something has been there, it has to be redacted. So anyway, once again, thank you so much, staff, and thank you so much, council. I hope this proposal gets approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. We do have a deadline that's provided in the notice, whereas any communication received by that deadline is included in the packet, and there's a lot of communication that comes in after that fact that is not included in a packet, you know, including up to moments before a meeting begins. But I could ask planning staff to speak to the fact. I believe that they do keep a record of all of the submissions, but we don't update the council packet as items come in.
Through you, Chair Freeman, yeah, we did receive a few additional comments that are available for staff, I can confidently say the staff report has addressed those issues, and there's the comments that were expressed, I would suggest, are not material to council's decision tonight.
Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else present this evening that would like to speak to this application? Yes, please come forward and say your name and your place of residency.
Good evening, Council. My name is Shiva Subramanian. I'll write that down if somebody wants it later. Please do not misspell my name. And I'm a proud resident of Waterloo. I'm just here to say that this development is a step in the right direction. I walk past Laurel Trail and this particular parking lot all the time, and every time I walk by the parking lot, I'm like, this could house so many people. So I'm happy to see that it's housing 500 students, though I am sad to say that it's not taking away a single parking spot. I absolutely hate parking spots. There's definitely, I don't know if you have seen the stats, there is like 3 times, each car in North America has, I think, like 3 times the space it needs, and when there is like no housing for students and humans, cars take up a lot of space. And University of Waterloo is not my alma mater, so I will criticize them for being such an innovative university. It's kind of disheartening to see the lack of ambition there. I hope that in reviewing their master plan, taking into change all the development that has happened in and around the university, they are able to be more ambitious. I encourage the city to work closely with the universities to be more ambitious when it comes to student housing. Providing stable housing is one of the best things that the universities can do to ensure that the students can ensure their students' success. Having to worry about rent or having to worry about moving out is not something that is conducive to success when you're at a university. You have a lot of stress already. People think like, oh, student life is easy. It's like, before you enter into your adulthood, it's your one last chance to have some fun. But I think a lot of students these days are worried about paying rent and having to, just put themselves with the increased through university with the increased higher cost of education. So we should all be looking at doing things that makes life easier for students. They would be a fantastic addition to our community. They are the future of our community, and we need to make sure that they feel welcome here, and when they look back at their time at Waterloo, they are able to think of all the fun things that they were able to do and not think about the stress that they were undergoing because they were worried about rent. So yeah, I just encourage, I'm here, this is a great plan. I would have loved to see more. I hope to the people from the University of Waterloo here, you would consider building more in the rest of the parking lot. And I encourage the city to work closely with the universities to make sure that it happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the delegation, Council? Thank you. Is there anyone else present this evening that would like to speak to this application? Seeing none, if there's no more delegations, this formal public meeting is concluded and the application is now open to council for a motion and debate. Councilor Rowe.
Through you, Chair, I will happily move to approve this application. Whereas Council has considered all written and oral submissions, and whereas Council has considered the professional opinions of planning staff, therefore be it resolved that Council approve Report IPPW 2023-053, that Council approve zoning bylaw amendment Z2310, University of Waterloo 155 and 165 University Avenue West, in accordance with Section 7 of Staff Report IPPW 2023-053. And 3, that Council not pass the implementing bylaw to lift the holding H provision for the proposed development as specified in 2C and 2D above until written confirmation has been received from the Region of Waterloo and CN Rail confirming that all noise and vibration requirements specified in 3R12 of zoning bylaw 2018-050 are satisfied.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Vasek. It's now open to council. Was there any other comments, questions? Councillor Vasek?
I know it's been a long day, so I'm sorry to belabor this, but I'm very excited to see this. So congrats on your first formal application here, Amanda, I think. Is that right? Yes, yes. Thank you. And yeah, so I came to Waterloo to go to the University of Waterloo, and you look at this application and you can just imagine, again, being a student there. And so it's a beautiful space, really. And now that I know more about the beige, it has so much more meaning. And just to say it's a really thoughtful application. Thank you for bringing it forward. I echo the delegates' comments that more is better encouraged, I think. And I'm really excited to see it coming forward. So thank you for pulling this together, everybody.
Mayor McCabe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. And could you, staff or the representative from UW, because I totally support the application, 100%. We need more housing. I'm just curious. I don't fully understand why we need to replace the house, or sorry, not the housing. We need to replace the parking lot piece. If someone could just explain that in more detail, like, is that truly necessary to do that part?
So through the chair, so there's actually a provision in the zoning bylaw, section 949, that says, notwithstanding anything to the contrary, the parking requirement for UW may be based on the main campus or land zoned University College within 800 meters of the UW main campus. So if the required parking is able to be accommodated elsewhere on the campus, that it would be supported by the zoning bylaw. So it doesn't necessarily need to be expanded on this site. It could potentially be accommodated elsewhere on the main campus if they have extra parking already there.
Okay, and I guess I would look to UW to see if that's actually possible or not. And I'm also just, what year was that provision put, or that policy put in place?
Through you, Chair Freeman. That policy dates back to around 2002 was likely when it was originally established, based on campus master planning for the post-secondary institutions. But really it's intended, the parking ratio for the university is quite low, and there's flexibility as to where the university can place their parking. It gives them a lot of freedom. Anywhere on the main campus or within 800 meters, right? They can move parking around to meet their needs. And really what I would say is the application that's before council is about proximity to the railway and proximity to the street. It is not related to the parking. The parking is based on the university's proposal to expand its lot. I don't think it's necessarily being required by the city, so the question likely is best addressed by the university in terms of why they're looking to expand the parking lot. It's not really something that is emanating from the applications before council.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, Joel. I don't know if you want to speak to that. Is it Duncan?
Through you, Chair Freeman. The university, as you can appreciate, has an incredibly dynamic parking load coming and going 24 hours, 8 hours, varying different times of the day. The university is undertaking a comprehensive campus-wide parking study. Anecdotally, we can all admit's I think the wrong word, but all acknowledge that there is existing capacity on the campus. There are very obviously vacant parking spots available. So we are working quite heavily with the traffic consultant in the interim, focused on the immediate vicinity of this site to try and determine if the current parking load can be accommodated in excess parking stalls already constructed. It's our goal and our ambition certainly to not pave over additional green space, but there is a committed parking permit load and an ongoing parking study that I think needs to run its course before it can be fully validated. The expectation is in the next few months we'll have clarity on this.
Thank you for that. I guess I would just note that it's from 2002. And so it's good to hear that you're doing a parking study and you have someone coming on board to be with sustainable transportation to see if there's a way that you can, maybe look to reduce that, that potential load. So thank you. We'll leave that with you. Thank you.
Any other comments, council? I just have one. I just wanted to say that I support this application for a number of reasons, but one in particular, over the last term of council and this council, we've heard a lot of people say that they wish that universities were a stronger partner in terms of building student housing so that the challenges associated with students finding affordable accommodations within the city of Waterloo, within the development industry, would be reduced. And so I think this is a great example of the university recognizing the opportunity it has to respond to those comments more broadly in the community and to create more spaces for students where they actually feel closer and more a part of the university experience. My son was an engineering student and he certainly wanted to live on campus, and he ended up living in a Laurier residence that Waterloo was kind of co-opting for the term, and it just wasn't the same. It did not feel like he was a UW first year student. And my husband and I both graduated engineering from Waterloo, and we lived on campus for much of our time there, primarily in St. Paul's College. But I just think that it really enhances that welcoming feeling to students as they come to school. And for those students who are involved in some of the programs at Waterloo, and of course I'm most familiar with engineering, engineering is absolutely a team sport. It is not a solo effort. It takes many people in the engineering canoe to paddle your way through 4 years of that program. So being able to live in residence and build those cohorts during your team, or a team cohort, I guess I could say, through the engineering experience is really important. Claudette Miller Hall and connecting to it and using the incredible investment the university made in that kitchen is brilliant, because that concourse there where the food services is huge, and I think it was always envisioned to serve many more people than live just in Claudette Miller Hall. So I hope that the bridge works out and that there isn't any challenges with the railway on that, and that the city can be a partner in helping to see that bridge come to fruition. And just the whole concept of thinking about how your campus is going to function through a master planning process where it relates to housing is really great as well, to know that there's a bigger strategy. I appreciated what you had to say about decommissioning other buildings, determining whether the highest and best use of the land was in place for those buildings. So we'll look forward to hearing more about that when time permits. And I'm hopeful that when you're opening that facility that you'll need some extra council support, because I'd love to see the building when it's done. So thank you very much. With that, council, we have a motion on the table. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. We are moving on. Sorry, I've got to get myself back into my place in my agenda. We'll just wait for Councillor Bodley, I guess, to return. How is everyone doing? Do you need a short break for you're okay? Everyone's good? You want 5 minutes? The mayor wants 5 minutes. No, okay, we're good to go. Okay, looking over at the staff table. Is everyone good? Okay. All right. Mr. Cotter, your team has done exceptional work this evening, so please take that back to them. We are now on item C, 11C, extension of the solar initiative, support our local economic recovery. And the report is in your council packet. It's prepared by Aminu Bello. Did I say your name right? Okay, great, thank you. And so this is a formal public meeting to consider item 11C, extension of the solar support our local economic recovery initiative. Any persons who want further notice of this application, including passage of any bylaw, should sign the appropriate register in the binder located on the desk at the rear of the council chambers. If there is more than one binder, please make sure you are signing the appropriate one. Will the clerk please advise council of the method used to give notice of the meeting and the dates notice was given?
Notice was advertised in the KW Record on November 16th, 2023. An informal public meeting was not held.
Thank you. The planner, Aminu Bello, will now give a brief overview of the application.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council, and public in attendance. My name is Aminu Bello. I'm a planner with the Development Planning Section. This is a extension of the temporary use bylaw put forward, also known as SOLAR, which is for full, is support our local economic development initiative. It's to expand the temporary uses permitted under the zoning bylaw. For example, such temporary uses would include off-street parking spaces for private use for commercial and cultural purposes, outdoor display areas and yards notwithstanding clauses under the zoning bylaw, patios and other uses that are deemed appropriate by the city, expansion of commercial spaces on the second floor of any building, also semi-permanent structures on commercial lands, as well as light manufacturing, light processing, and any personal protective equipment, PPE, or any other uses deemed appropriate by staff. So this is an extension of the temporary use bylaw that was approved back in 2020 under bylaw 2020-0-49 for the uses that I explained earlier. And these uses would be otherwise prohibited under the zoning bylaws. This is a temporary use bylaw to allow for those uses to support the solar initiative. As a backgrounder, many of you know the solar initiative was put forward back in the early days of the pandemic to support economic businesses and artisans. So this is an extension of that bylaw just to facilitate this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Was there any questions for staff, council? Seeing none. There's no registered delegates, but is there anyone present tonight who'd like to speak to this application? Seeing none. If there's no more delegations, this formal public meeting is concluded and the application is now open to council for motion and debate. Mayor McCabe.
I'd be happy to move this motion, and thank you for the recommendation and the work on this. And, you know, I just think anything we can do to enliven streets and make them a place where people can come out and interact is great. Do you want me to move this? Or, sorry, read this? Whereas council has considered all written and oral submissions, and whereas council has considered the professional opinions of planning staff, therefore be it resolved that council approve report IPPW 2023-062, that council support the extension of the solar initiative until December 31st, 2024, that council approve the extension of temporary use zoning bylaw 2020-049 as amended solar initiative pursuant to Section 39 of the Planning Act as set forth in IPPW 2023-62.
And there's a seconder for the motion, council, Councillor Roach. Is there any comments, questions? All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Consideration of notice of motion given at a previous meeting, there is none. Notice of motion, none. Communications and correspondence, there is none. Unfinished business, there's none. Questions, council? Okay, we're going to move into new business. I'm just going to turn the chair. You had, it's under new business. So I'm just going to turn the chair over. Oh, I'm sorry, under under new business, we'll do one thing first. It's the regional all-council meeting, December 15th, and I just need a motion that we can participate in that meeting. Moved by Councillor Bodley, seconded by Councillor Rowe. All those in favor? That's carried. And there's another item under new business related to a funding piece that I'm conflicted on, so related to being on the board of directors for Share the Road Coalition. So I'm just going to step out for a minute and turn the chair over to the mayor, if that's okay, and I'll come back for the bylaws.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Freeman. We'll just give you a moment to exit. Oh. Okay, so we need to, because this was just presented to us, I'm looking to see if there's councils open to waiving the notice of motion. Is there someone who will? Thank you, Councillor Hamner. Is there a seconder for Councillor Rowe? All in favor of waiving the notice of motion? Thank you. So, Councillor Hamner, were you going to table this motion on behalf of Councillor?
I am happy to table this
Over to
motion.
you.
Thank you. And I'll just read it. We did receive notification, and all of us have received a letter from the Ontario Bike Summit about a fabulous opportunity, I believe, for our city. So I'm pleased to read the motion. Whereas the city has received a request to support the 2024 Ontario Bike Summit to be held in Waterloo, April 3rd to 5th, 2024, as a sponsor in the amount of $25,000. And whereas the city of Waterloo is one of Canada's gold bicycle-friendly communities, and the summit will provide a platform for the city to showcase its innovative approach to cycling and active transportation design and initiatives, and whereas the summit is anticipated to bring 200 delegates to Waterloo over a 3-day period with the potential for extended stays. Now therefore be it resolved that $25,000 be funded from Council's Community Priority Contingency Reserve to be donated as a sponsor for the 2024 Ontario Bike Summit. I'm happy to make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hamner. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Bodley. Are there comments, questions from council about this? Seeing none. Oh, sorry, Councillor Rowe.
Through you, Chair, I'm actually just curious if we've had a bike summit in the city in the past.
Yes, in fact, the Bike Summit launched in 2009 in Waterloo, and Councillor Freeman was very, very involved. I think from the very outset, certainly she was part of the organizing committee in 2009, sorry, to bring it to Waterloo. So yeah, we were the first. So this is, my maths right, 15 years later. So it's a nice sort of full circle to come back to Waterloo to host the Bike Summit.
Thank you. Obviously, everyone can tell that I'm not a cyclist, but thank you.
Well, and I would, my only additional comment would be, to just recognize and thank Councillor Freeman for her many years of work on issues like this. It's really made a difference. And I know when she was speaking to me about this, the summit that was held here in 2009, and just some of the policy pieces that came out of that have really informed our own municipality, but other municipalities across Ontario's and across Canada to bring in more cycling infrastructure, and various policies and practices have changed as a result. So just wanted to acknowledge her long-standing commitment to this and thank her for it. So is there any other comments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? That is carried and unanimous. Thank you very much. And we'll just, okay, you can return, Councillor Freeman.
I'm very excited. I'm hopeful that council will all come. All right. Council, are we ready to enact some bylaws? Woohoo! All right, I think that we need a little Christmas cheer for the bylaw enactment, so don your stuff. I know you did good, Julie. What? Oh, yeah, of course, new business. It's flashing over here. New business council. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you. I actually just had a couple things I wanted to mention. Last week, the Herb West Community Center had a gingerbread competition, which is really fantastic. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the staff there because they do really fantastic work in the community. And also to Northdale, not Northdale, my gosh, that's on my brain tonight. Thorndale neighborhood community, which is where I live, really came out in droves to support the food bank, and we filled the back of a pickup truck this weekend for the food bank, which was really incredible. So I just wanted to say thank you to the neighborhood, and also, as someone else may mention, the menorah lighting on Thursday. Yeah, it was really amazing in Uptown, an incredible crowd, and it was a really fantastic event. So thank you.
That's great. Any other new business? Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Councillor Vasic and I went and delivered food hampers for the House of Friendship. That was great fun, and we had an opportunity to talk to lots of people, and just hearing their stories of appreciation was just very touching. So we had some good times and good conversations as we did that. I also just want to note that on Sunday I had the opportunity to attend the holiday concert by the Wellington Wind Orchestra, Wind Symphony rather, and the Waterloo County Teachers Choir, and it was phenomenal. It was a packed house and the performance was excellent, and so that was at Knox Presbyterian.
Yeah, so Pat the Dog is running the Buzzy Indie series monthly between September, it might have started, or October, until June. And I popped by last Monday to the Jingle All the Gay event, which I didn't actually get to stay at the whole time. But it was wonderful to see some people. They did some kids' book readings, a little book sale from Rad Riot Books, and there was a drag show and some comedy afterwards. And they're doing a bunch of other ones too. There's like a mixed tape event in January and many other ones. So a really fun, interactive experience at the Registry Theatre with Pat the Dog.
Thank you. Anything else, Councillor Bodley?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just give a shout out to the Laurelwood Neighborhood Association. On Saturday, they hosted a Christmas tree lighting at the fire station, actually, Station 2. And there was a whole bunch of community members there and folks doing crafts, and I believe Santa dropped by as well, too. So pretty exciting for the kids in the neighborhood. Thank you to, as always, to the neighborhood associations for everything that they do.
Oh, this is getting so exciting. Councillor Roach and Councillor Vasic forgot something.
Yes. Just want to give a shout out to the new All Saints Anglican Church that the mayor and I were able to attend their consecration, and learned all about their new community center, the Sidewalk Center, which is fantastic. It's an amazing facility. And I also got to do the turkey wobble and deliver turkeys on the other day. It was a lot of fun. It was great to visit with the community there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vasic?
Thank you. I completely forgot a ward one, which it started during the pandemic, like a tree or a house lighting competition with prizes from local businesses. And it's organized by a resident named Mark. And it's just grown, so there's tons more people who do the competition. Nice to drive through, and people love it. Like the Facebook group goes wild for it, and families are out, and it's a really big community building thing in Lincoln Heights neighborhood.
That's great. Well, you know what, I gotta tell you, even though it does make our meetings linger a little, I love this stuff under new business because, and I apologize to staff because I know it keeps you, but the thing is that it just is this, it's this recognition that there's so much happening in the city every single night of the week between cultural events and social events and neighborhood events. And I think that I'd like to think that the work we're doing at the city in terms of facilitating these things to happen and supporting community in undertaking these really awesome events is just a sign of collaboration, and I love it. And as an aside, I will tell you that I'm very excited that my dog Elise and I are now doing therapy dog work with St. John's Ambulance at Parkwood Mennonite. And on the weekend, they received an early visit from one of Santa's reindeers who crashed through the front door and ran about in the main room, made a few hoof marks in their TVs. So if you hear about it, it really happened. Like the doors literally slide open as you approach them. So the reindeer visited in the evening and made sure that it was fully accessible to the big man in red on the important evening. Waterloo Regional Police did provide assistance in streamlining direction back out of the building, but not before a fair bit of adventuring was undertaken. I just thought it was the greatest story ever, so I had to share that. Admittedly, I put the reindeer spin on it, but it is evidence that we do have urban deer that reside in the city of Waterloo. I think indeed we are on to enactment of bylaws, right? Councillor Bodley is moving the bylaws and Councillor Wright is seconding them. Council, is everyone in favor of these bylaws? Those are passed unanimously. And I need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Rowe, Mayor McCabe, all those in favor? We are done. That's a unanimous decision. To all of you at this 9:25 hour, thank you for joining us online and thank you for joining us in the chambers.